Sign the contract with Carrick. Give him a long-term deal. Tie him down immediately. These are the words flooding Manchester United fan pages over the past few days. And it is completely understandable. 3 matches, 3 victories, including wins against the 2 biggest giants of the league, Arsenal and Manchester City. Matches ending with late goals, evoking emotions that feel so old, yet so familiar. When a team wins beautifully, wins big, and wins in so many different ways, the natural instinct of the fans is to hold on to that feeling for as long as possible. And in that moment, Michael Carrick becomes the simplest answer. Someone familiar, someone intimate, someone who understands the culture, understands the dressing room, and truly understands Manchester United. In just these past 3 matches, Carrick has achieved so much. United can sit deep, they can dictate play, they can counterattack, and they can press high up the pitch. But the most important thing isn't the formation or the tactics. It is the feeling that the team is whole again. The lines are communicating, the players trust each other. And crucially, the message from the coaching staff to the dressing room is no longer distorted. Internal sources paint a positive picture. No drama, no public comments that hurt the players. No turning press conferences into a place to vent anger at the squad. According to the Daily Mail, he has even reduced training hours. Carrick has chosen a quiet, calm approach to leadership. It feels authentically United, with red blood running through his veins. Just as the fans always say. A former player returns to stabilize the ship after a turbulent era under a Portuguese manager. The comparisons between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's interim appointment in 2018 and Michael Carrick 8 years later are undeniable. And the story might not stop there. Solskjaer took over from José Mourinho and did enough to earn the permanent job. Now, Carrick is at the helm following the departure of Ruben Amorim. After Carrick kicked off his tenure with impressive victories over Manchester City and Arsenal, whispers began to circulate among the exhilarated fanbase. Has United finally found the right man for the dugout? Today, the club operates under a new leadership structure, with many different voices weighing in on major decisions. Yet, the parallels between Solskjaer and Carrick are impossible to ignore. United has been seduced before, tempted into permanently promoting an interim manager. And if this success is maintained until the end of the season, Carrick's case for history repeating itself becomes increasingly convincing. Sources involved in Solskjaer's appointment in December 2018 told ESPN that the Norwegian was viewed strictly as a temporary solution following Mourinho's dismissal. The plan back then was simply to buy time. Laurent Blanc, who also had a brief spell playing at Old Trafford, was another name considered for the interim role. However, the internal feeling was that his experience managing France and Paris Saint-Germain made him feel too much like a long-term option in waiting. Solskjaer was seen as the safer bet. He still had a job at Molde to return to in the summer of 2019, the exact moment United's search for a new manager was expected to conclude. Solskjaer, who actually had Carrick on his coaching staff, was not initially considered a top candidate for the permanent job. But according to sources, United executives valued him as a potential option, and he was never completely ruled out. Carrick is currently in a situation strikingly similar to the past. United sources told ESPN that it would take something extraordinary for the former England midfielder to be handed the permanent job. When the time is right, the focus would shift to external candidates. The recurring message was that a repeat of the Solskjaer scenario was highly unlikely. But Carrick, just like Solskjaer before him, has left his future open. And he could argue, what could be more extraordinary than winning a Manchester derby against one of history's greatest managers? Pep Guardiola? Not only that, but inflicting the first home defeat of the season on the Premier League leaders. Sources told ESPN that the board wasn't just convinced by the results, but by how those victories were achieved. Mourinho's pragmatism has vanished. It has been replaced by attacking flair, a willingness to take risks, and brave, one-touch forward passing. According to one source, Carrick has shown even more boldness than Amorim in his first few games, especially at the Emirates, where he made attacking changes in the second half while the match was still in the balance. With Solskjaer, there was a feeling that he was restoring values lost under Mourinho. Sources said that Solskjaer had real clarity on what Manchester United needed to be. It felt like talking to Sir Alex Ferguson. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Under Amorim, despite high expected goals, XG, the gameplay felt stifled. The attack felt disjointed. Even after completely revamping the front line as Amorim wanted, it didn't click. Carrick brings a simplicity that is far more effective. And that contrast has won him the affection of the fans. Back to this transitional context. Before Amorim was dismissed, the club hierarchy was already concerned about his comments targeting specific players. The board was unhappy with his public criticism of Benjamin Sesko and Patrick Dorgu. Amorim claimed Sesko was struggling and Dorgu looked nervous every time he touched the ball. In contrast, notice how Carrick keeps his press conferences brief. He had every opportunity to criticize Diogo Dalot after a poor individual performance against Man City. But instead of agreeing, as Amorim might have done, Carrick chose to protect his player. Solskjaer scored points for how he handled the media. And Carrick is saying all the right things too. Modernizing the club structure has long been United's goal. Amorim ultimately rebelled against this structure. And a serious breakdown in his relationship with technical director Jason Wilcox contributed to his exit. Instead of changing the power dynamics, United is digging in. They insist the next permanent manager must accept their place within the decision-making system. External candidates like Thomas Tuchel or Roberto De Zerbi are known to be demanding, especially regarding transfers. Given how the relationship with Amorim ended, it is easy to see why a quiet, adaptable figure like Carrick becomes an attractive proposition for Wilcox and CEO Omar Berrada. Ultimately, above all else, results remain the most important factor. Solskjaer won 14 of his 19 games as interim manager and was permanently appointed in March 2019. Since coming in, the results have spoken for themselves. Ed Woodward said at the time. Sources told ESPN there wasn't one single defining moment that convinced the board. But beating Mauricio Pochettino's Tottenham 1-0 at Wembley in January 2019 certainly helped. We talked about sticking to a process. But it turned out we didn't need to. He showed the right things. On and off the pitch. Right from the start. Sources indicate that United still plan to continue their search process. They have discussed waiting for managers potentially available after the World Cup. Or big names like Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Pochettino, Carlo Ancelotti, or Julian Nagelsmann. There are also candidates with Premier League experience like Andoni Iraola, Marco Silva, and Oliver Glasner. A key factor that Jason Wilcox and Omar Berrada are looking for is the ability to withstand the pressure that comes with managing United, and crucially, teaching the players to do the same. There is a feeling that this pressure became an overload for Amorim, and United do not want to make that mistake again. That is one thing that set Solskjaer apart in 2019, and it could happen again with Carrick. Both learned how to face the harsh spotlight of Old Trafford as players. Both have won league titles and the Champions League. They have been there, done that, and succeeded. For now, United wants to distance themselves from suggestions that history is repeating. But just a few more good results, and the noise surrounding this story might become impossible to ignore. In reality, when appointing the interim manager, the board did not act on emotion. Two names were on the table, Carrick and Ole. And even as a temporary solution, United always hoped that if things went smoothly, they might find a long-term answer. Stability is what this club has lacked for too long. Internally, Carrick is viewed as a suitable fit, calm, less friction, yet authoritative. However, that does not mean he is ready for the long haul. The real challenge isn't this season. Next season could be one of Manchester United's most difficult in a decade. Three major pillars, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro, and Harry Maguire, could all leave at once. The dressing room will be restructured. Power dynamics will shift. Pressure will mount. Whether they qualify for the Champions League or not, United will enter a state of forced reconstruction. In that context, handing a long-term contract to Carrick based on a few emotional victories is a massive gamble. Not because he isn't good enough, but because Manchester United cannot afford to be wrong again. Carrick might be the right man. But this might not be the right time. Being calm right now means not turning our backs on Carrick, but continuing to observe him. Put him in harder situations. See how he reacts when they lose. When the crisis returns. When the dressing room cracks. Because managing Manchester United isn't about winning a few big games. It is about surviving the pressure for years. And the most important question is not, should we sign Carrick right now? But rather, do we have the patience to do it right, instead of doing it fast?